I have a sword. It's the closest thing I have to anything that looks Viking-ish, and it doesn't even look all that Viking-ish. Looks like something out of a video game that people thought looked like a Viking sword. Sword. It's also just plastic. I don't really have anything. I have like a Roman centurion real-ish sword off to my side, but that's not really going to help me here. That would have been more appropriate for Dressrosa. So, we have new One Piece chapter. We also have new announcements in regards to the live action for some of the casting. So before I go into the chapter, I did want to go over the new live action cast that they've put up so far. So they've released a whole bunch of the ones that are going to be there. They've announced Mr. 9 and Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine and Dory and Broggy and Smoker and Tashigi and Wapple and Dalton. And I think just today they announced who's going to play Cobra, so that's really good. We still haven't gotten Vivi or Ace yet, or Robin. Those will probably be coming out like tomorrow or something, because Oda put out like a press release with like, as like a talking about like the new season for season 2, that it's, it's currently filming and everything else, so that'll be good. I will get to the other big casting announcement in a moment, but I wanted to go over a few of the other little ones that I'm just somewhat familiar with before I get to the big one that they've made. But yeah, so Oda did like the press release and everything like that with like, all the little drawings of like, the live action cast as their characters, which is just adorable. So all of that, made some announcements about that for casting things and that they're filming. And that at the moment, from what we can see, it's going to be from basically Logtown up through the end of Drum Island is what it sounds like for what they will be filming and what will be part of season 2, which that was going to be one of the big questions when it came to the live action of like, okay, so what part of, how far into the Grand Line are they going to do for season 2? And Alabasta being like the end of the Alabasta saga makes sense for like, okay, that's kind of hard to pull off in like 2 episodes given everything that happens, all of the battles that happen, all of the character development that we see with a lot of the characters and everything in the history of Alabasta, and setting all of that up, plus introducing Ace and Robin and Vivi and all of that stuff. I mean, Vivi gets introduced at, at Cape Town, at the Twin Peaks. Or the Twin Capes, excuse me, get introduced there. But, so there was a lot of that stuff that they were determining about. So I'm fine with them just doing Logtown up through the end of, like, Drum Island, heading off toward Alabasta, and then having it be that Alabasta into a little bit of post-Alabasta stuff being, like, its own season as, like, season 3. I'd be fine with that, particularly with the fact that they do seem to be adding in stuff here and there with, Garp and Kobe and Helmeppo and stuff like that for like their side of the journey as well, adding some of that in, so we'll see how that goes. But the other casting announcements that they made were for Mr. 3, and that is going to be David Dashmalian. I apologize for mispronouncing that. He's in Late Night with the Devil, but the thing that I recognize him from is that he is from the Ant-Man movies, where he plays this side character who is like one of Scott Lang's like prison, not prison buddies, but friends who also happens to have been like a computer hacker named Kurt. And he's in the Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, and that's that character that I'm familiar with. And then the one who they have cast to play Crocus, Clive Russell, I was looking him up, and he was in Game of Thrones. He didn't play a huge over-the-top major role in Game of Thrones, but he played Brayden Tully, who is Lady Catelyn Tully Stark's uncle. So the great uncle of all of her children with Ned. He's very supportive of her and Rob, and I believe he ends up dying at the Red Wedding along with her and Rob and everything there. But he was supposed to be like a great warrior in the Game of Thrones story. So he's going to be playing Crocus, which I'm like, well, we need a badass old guy to play Crocus, so I'm fine with this. The other one that they had for the announcement was who was going to play Hiraluk, and that is Mark Herelick, which I'm like, okay, yeah, good naming there. So he's in Presumed Innocent, and he's in Preacher, and he's been in a bunch of other stuff. But looking through his biography about, his filmography of movies and shows that he's been in, I think he was in Big Bang Theory for like 5 episodes or something, where he played like the guy that was like the head of the college that all the guys work at. But the thing that rang in my brain for what he was in, and this shows you my not Disney brain going into effect, but my non-Disney animated brain going into effect, which is appropriate because I'm reviewing non-Disney animated movies at the moment. But he was in the Swan Princess from 1994, which is 30 freaking years ago, which is just like, wow. But the Swan Princess from 1994, and he plays Lord Rogers, who is like, if you've ever seen the movie, he's the guy that's, he's like the conductor of the orchestra, and he's like the guy that like Prince Derek goes to for advice, and is, for all intents and purposes in the later movies, the love interest for, Derek's mother, for Queen Uberta and everything. So there's that all involved there for him. So that's how that works there. That's where I recognized him from. But the big casting announcement we got was who was going to be playing Dr. Kureha. And like many, including my mother, we wanted it to be Jamie Lee Curtis to play Dr. Kureha because she wanted to play Dr. Kureha. But there's this little thing that they're doing with Disney called Freaky Friday 2 with Jamie Lee Curtis and with Lindsay Lohan and all of that stuff. And that happens to be filming at the same time that they are doing stuff now. So they can't, she can't film 2 different roles in 2 different continents at the same time for this. So we sadly will not be having Jamie Lee Curtis as Dr. Kureha. But we will be having Katie Sagal as Dr. Kureha, which I am 1,000% okay with because she is also badass. She was in Married with Children. She's Leela in Futurama, if you want to go there. She's the mom in 8 Simple Rules. She's like a mom in Sons of Anarchy. Her husband, I think, also wrote Sons of Anarchy. So she's been in tons of stuff, and I love Katie Sagal, and I think she's going to pull up being Dr. Kureha really, really well. So I'm really happy about that. I'm happy about, like, okay, we didn't get Jamie Lee Curtis, we got Katie Sagal. I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. I am absolutely okay with that. And my mom recognized her and all of that stuff, so that made me happy. I even mentioned to my dad, and he knows who Katie Sagal is because he knows Married with Children and everything like that. So I was very happy about those casting announcements there. Although I did have the thought of, like, I wonder if they would have someone who, if down the line, who they could maybe have Jamie Lee Curtis play if she wanted to still be in One Piece, which I think she wants to, but it all depends on how it lands with other filming roles. Of, like, well, who else could she play in One Piece? And I was thinking of other, like, badass older women in One Piece that she could pull off, and I'm like, well, why don't we just go for the other end of the spectrum and have her play Suru, Vice Admiral Suru, who is, the highest ranked female Marine in One Piece. Instead of being kind of on the side of the pirates, she can be in the Marines, and she can put Garp in his place. Keep Garp and Sengoku in line. Have her play, Jamie Lee Curtis play Suru, which I think would be a great idea. Then again, it all depends, it's like, depends on when they're going to finally get to that. And then, like, down the line, how, integral Suru is going to be into the story and the live action and everything like that. Also had the thought that it was, well, maybe she could pull off playing, like, Mother Caramel in, like, Big Mom's flashback, but that's so long down the line that I'm like, I don't know if we're going to get that far in the live action. We'll have to wait and see how season 2 even goes, but I wanted to point that out there for a bunch of the live action casting that I really liked for some of those ones. So, into the actual chapter review. So this chapter is chapter 1124, and it is titled Best Friend. And we get to the Yamato cover story again for Yamato's journey. And in this case, Yamato seems to maybe have left the Kibi region and is working into one of the other regions at the moment. because it looks much more lush than the Kibi region looked. And we see that Yamato has saved a young woman from an attacker or a kidnapper. I think it says a kidnapper, from being kidnapped. So she's in the Kuri. Yamato is in the Kuri region, and this is where Yamato saves this woman, is in the Kuri region. And we see the silhouette in the background, but we don't see enough of the silhouette to determine who it is. My assumption is that in the next panel, the next cover page, we're going to see Yamato running after the person, and we might get a better look at the person. It could be a possible beast pirate. It could just be someone else who wanted to support Kaido and Orochi that just hasn't been taken care of yet. It could just be some new character. It could just be a desperate character. We don't know. But we'll see from there. But that's what we have there for the cover page, and then into the chapter. So we start off at the World Economic Times. I love the fact that I love Morgan's flying balloon teacup. I love that teapot. I love that. It's so cute. And I like that it says "We News," as in "we make the news" type of a thing is what it's going on here, and we're very much getting that as what's being represented here. Because we have Morgan's yelling, and he's like, "All right, men, let's heat up the dance floor, get the party going, and what an unbelievable turn of events. Make them feel the dread, paint a picture of a horrible world to come." And I like the editor's note was like, of course he'll make a move as well. It's like, Morgan's is a newsman. Even in nowadays, if there's news going on in the world, it's all over the news right now. Like right now, there is the DNC going on here in America, in Chicago, in other places all around the world. They have their own news that's going on. There's news that, transcends all over the globe, depending on stuff. And this is definitely something that would be transcending all over the One Piece world. And Morgan's is just like, customers will cling to the news. Customers who cling to the news will have no choice but to wait for the next world, for like the next, excuse me, for the next edition of the World Economic Times is what he's going for. And Vivi is just standing next to him, and she's like, "You're despicable." Vegapunk also clearly expressed his hope for the future. And Morgan's is just like, trying to shake his finger at Vivi, like, "Shame on you, don't you talk back to me, little girl." And he's like, "This is my stage, so don't try to cut my mic, little girl." It's like, okay. Or I'll expose your whereabouts too. It's like, okay, first of all, her whereabouts are with you. So if you expose her whereabouts and the world government is looking for her, the world government is going to come after you. You also have done multiple things over the last several weeks that they did not like you revealing to the world, did not like you publishing. So you're kind of going to bite your own tail, going to put your own foot in your mouth there, dude. You're going to, get caught yourself. And then Vivi's like, "Oh, did I strike a nerve, Mr. Big Bird with an even bigger lying mouth?" I love Vivi's attitude. I love that Vivi has gained so much confidence. I mean, like, she gained so much confidence when she was running around with the Straw Hats and everything like that. But even over the last 2 years, with really stepping into her role as princess and now, for all intents and purposes, queen-to-be of Alabasta, she's like, "Yeah, okay, no, I'm going to talk back to you, Bird, because that's what I can do." And she's like, "Anyone with a brain won't be deceived by your lies." And we see just like, first of all, we see like the little news girls in the background that were like fawning over Vivi before. And we also see Wapol in the background. He's like, "Hey, can we not fight? Can we not make the giant bird angry?" And he's like, no, Vivi, dear, my dear, if we make Morgan's angry, we'll be left with no place to go." And Vivi's like ignoring Wapol, which is fair. And Morgan's is just like, well, ain't that something? If so, the world's gonna sink, they say. Ha, kawahaha, whatever his laugh is. "I live up here in the sky, so maybe this next era is mine." Now that I think about it, do you think Morgans knows about the Sky Islands? He may know at least about like Witheria, because maybe he's like come across it at some point in time, because we don't know how much he travels around the world, but like maybe he's come across Witheria. and talked with Herodotus or something like that, and like maybe thought there was a story there, but just decided against it. But then there's also like he doesn't go high enough to get into the White Sea or the White Sea to get up to where like Skypiea is. So maybe not, but maybe he at least kind of knows that they exist. That's a possibility. If there would be someone in the world that maybe figured out that, it might be him. And he's like, well, there, princess, you might want to fix that nasty attitude if you know what's good for you. And she's like, not really. Being the last ones left in a perishing world doesn't sound too appealing in any case. Yeah, that's the thing you got to think about here, Morgans, is like, your drive is to sell newspapers, regardless of whether or not what you print is 100% true or not, but your drive is to sell newspapers. And if your drive is both greed and being this bestseller, you need people to buy those newspapers. And if there's no one left in the world to buy the newspapers, then you don't have a business model anymore. That's kind of the way that works. If there's no one else left in the world, you can publish all the papers you want and try to have all of your birds deliver them, but you're not going to get anything in return. If all the islands sink and get destroyed. And Morgans is still yelling. He's like, ha ha ha, guess what? You're in for a surprise. There's a flood of incredible news. And Vivi's just like following him. Vivi also seems to have changed clothes into like, well, I mean, like it looks like a black dress, but like in the, once it's colored and once it's in the anime, it might be like, you know, a darker colored dress or whatever. Vivi does always look good in like dark blues. So maybe that, or maybe like a dark purple or something like that to represent like the fact that she's like a queen now, or like queen to be, and purple is generally a very royal color. So like we'll see what that ends up being when the anime eventually gets to this. And Morgan and like Walpole is still trying to make Vivi stop. He's like, geez, Vivi, please, you really shouldn't make this guy angry. He can throw us off of his balloon, and neither of us can fly, and I have a devil fruit, and I'm gonna sink. Type thing if we go. And Morgan's is just like listing off all of the headlines. Emperor Blackbeard versus Trafalgar Law. Emperor Red-Haired versus Eustace Captain Kidd. Emperor Straw Hat Luffy murders Dr. Vegapunk. And you liar! I love Vivi just shouting at him. And then we cut away from Morgan's and we cut back down to Egghead, which is, I mean, we still see like the punk record still seems to be pretty much intact, along with like the island cloud thing that it was sitting on. We do know that because of the last chapter that Vegapunk did want to preserve that the cloud loft thing, that the bottle, the island cloud production station. He wanted to preserve that. Because that would be very useful for, like, if the world does start to sink, they can make the island clouds for people to live up. And basically, you know, do what they did with Letheria and what is with, you know, Skypiea and Bjerka in that regard. So there's that. And we still see all of, like, the Navy ships sitting in the harbor, sitting around the island. You know, as it's revealed, pretty much everybody on these ships is just completely knocked out. We don't see Saturn in this chapter. So Saturn is probably, and we don't see Emmett, I don't think, in this chapter. Emmett's probably just still standing there, about ready to fall over or something. And Saturn's just standing there just like, I am going to get an earful from Im Sama when I get back. I'm going to have to be the one forced to stand all the time now instead of Mars. For that reference. And then we see like a little boat getting away, and the little boat has Sentomaru in it. And Sentomaru is just, you know, he got like a couple of supplies, and he's still got his giant axe, and he's, you know, paddling away with the oars, and he's crying. Which is fair, because he just watched a place that has kind of been his home for the past however many years be destroyed. He, you know, Vegapunk is dead as far as he is aware. He has no idea that at the very least Lilith survived. He doesn't know that. And even then, even though Sentomaru probably watched Vegapunk make all of the other satellites, for, you know, for Sentomaru, it's like, yeah, okay, you are all connected, but like Grandpa Punk is like different than like the rest of you. You all kind of have like your own little personalities, but, you know, Vegapunk Prime, the Stella, is the one that he, grew up as, like, the person that was, like, helping him and everything like that, along with Kizaru and everything. So we see that, and, so Sentomaru's, like, crying as he's sailing away, which is completely and utterly fair. He just went through a very traumatic experience of being attacked by people he thought were his friends in the form of Kizaru, and then, all this other stuff, so that's perfectly reasonable. Speaking of Kizaru, over the Den Mushi, we are getting an answer me. Answer me, is everybody dead? And we cut to one of the ships. It's the ship that Kizaru crashed into way back when he got knocked away by, he got knocked away by Luffy during his fight, one of the skirmishes, when he got knocked away, the last one. Where he's just basically been, like, lying on his back with his arm over his face probably for the last however 10, 15, whatever minutes it's been since he landed there. Just, like, wallowing in his own self-pity and, like, we're going to get some of Kizaru's trauma in this regard for what's going on here. And he answers the phone. And, so over the line we're getting, what's going on? Come in, Egghead. And he answers the phone. And he's like, you're so damn noisy. And then it's Sakazuki Akainu is on the other end of the Den Mushi. And he's like, what's the deal with you coming to pick up the call? Borsalino, what happened to the others? And Kizaru is just, like, looking out over the deck of the ship. And I think he just, like, sat down on, like, whatever random crate or barrel was there. And it's just, like, surveying the damage just on this one ship, but just all over, because, like, Kizaru has observation hockey, so he at least might be able to sense if there's, like, anybody else that's awake within a reasonable distance from him. And either it was on every ship that was getting called by the snail call by the Den Mushi by Sakazuki, or Kizaru just happened to be on the ship that it was on. And so he's just like, Kizaru's just like, every last one of them, they're all out cold, foaming at the mouth, which pretty much, like we saw in the last chapter, that, like, even, like, the vice admirals were all knocked out, and, like, Kizaru's the only admiral here. And he may have been knocked out, but he may have been, like, a combination of, like, when Luffy, knocked him into the ship, and he may have just been weak enough that he got knocked out by the hockey, but he may have just been, like, the first one to recover from Emmett's hockey bomb and everything. But, like, everybody else is just out cold, and he may not be aware of whether or not Saturn is still on the island right now at the moment, since the other four got all bounced back to Marijois. And Sakazuki's just yelling, and he's like, what does that... They're all out, what do you mean by that? What about Saint Saturn? What about the power plant and the, and the escapees and everybody else? And, Kizaru is just like, I'll let you know when the youngins wake up. Like, in his mind, he's like, I just need a little bit of time to process what everything just happened here with, I tried to kill one of my best friends and one of my other best friends and the girl that I watched grow up and, like, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, Kizaru's going through some stuff right now, but we're getting a little bit of, like, his opinion of some of the things that he just had to do in regards to attacking Vegapunk. And attacking Sentomaru and attacking Bonnie and Kuma and all of that stuff for these people that he has this, like, very close bond with. And Akainu is just like, a half-assed job, and, not, isn't gonna cut it, Borsalino. And he's like, hey, and Borsalino just being like his, his usual calm self, his, calm, high as F self. Hey, Sakazuki, have you ever had to kill your best friend? And Sakazuki is just, like, silent while this is going on, while, Kizaru's talking. And so I think what we've heard, because we know that Garp, Sengoku, and Tsuru, previously mentioned in the video, they all started in the Marines at pretty much the same time. And I don't remember if Sakazuki, Borsalino, and Kuzan all started at the same time, or if it was they started at slightly different times, but even then it's like, okay, well, they all kind of came up together as Marines, and even if they didn't really know each other too well until they became, rear admirals or vice admirals or became the admirals themselves, they've known each other for quite a while. And even in the case of Sakazuki, 2 years ago, he had to fight against Kuzan on Punk Hazard to determine who was going to be the next admiral of the Marines, the next fleet admiral. And so, in a way, he has kind of fought his own best friend. He didn't kill his own best friend, but he's fought against these two. He's fought against someone who may have been the closest thing to a best friend that he had. But even then, that's a little bit left up for debate on, how much hard feelings were on either side beyond, the initial thing of, you took my leg. Well, you gave me scars. Screw you, I'm gonna freeze your freaking daughter the next time I see her. She'll be fine, though. I kind of like the Hibari being, Akainu's daughter. I like that theory. And then we have Kizaru having a flashback, and it's just kind of back to when he first met Vegapunk, and he's like, damn, you got a big head, man. Nice to meet you. I'm Borsalino, a Marine. And Vegapunk's just like, how much can you pay? And he's like, what? And and Vegapunk is just like, this arrest is just a pretense. You guys just want me for my brains, don't you? So how much can you put into my research funds? And Kizaru is just laughing. He's like, you're a funny dude. And this would have been back when he was still just Borsalino, whatever rank he was at the time. Because this would have been even when he had to deal with Arlong after Fisher Tiger's death, even that. Because by then he was, I think, already a rear admiral at that point in time, by the time he had to deal with Arlong way back when. So then we cut ahead to when Vegapunk is starting to build, Egghead, and he's like, so what's up with this island? He's like, I'm going to name it Egghead. And then we cut to where we see Kizaru, Sentomaru, and Kuma all working together and helping with building, where they're all carrying huge loads of Kizaru looks like he's carrying huge metal bars, and Kuma's got the giant pipes, and Sentomaru is carrying giant pallets of wood, stacks of wood and everything like that, because they're heading off, and it's just and Vegapunk is like, I'm gonna build the future 500 years from now. Give me a hand, Borsalino. And he's like, geez, all this heavy lifting when I'm supposed to be an admiral, because this is only taking place 4 years ago, I think is what we determined from Bonnie's flashback with, Kuma and Bonnie flashback and everything. And we see Kuma here, and this would have been during all the time when the surgery was going on. So we see little Bonnie there with Vegapunk, and they're just laughing and everything like that. So this is a callback to the stuff in the flashback we got with, the flashback that we got when it came to Kuma and Bonnie. And all of them, eating the pizza and doing the Nika dance and everything like that. So that's this callback reference to that there. Which, I mean, in the anime, when they get this, they'll probably pad it out a little bit more by adding in a little bit of them, Borsalino interacting with Kuma and Bonnie and stuff like that. So that'll be that. And then we cut to, where we see when, where Kizaru, where he stabbed Vegapunk with the light sword and everything like that, and him seeing Vegapunk's body fall to the ground, or we see this image of his, his sunglasses, his very, signature sunglasses, seeing Vegapunk on the ground, and him just this is everything's flooding forward for him, where it's he was being this, perfect little soldier of, kill the guy you're supposed to kill and defend the giant evil spider demon thing. But it should probably be the other way around, in all honesty. And Kizaru is just you're saying I did a half-ass job, Sakazuki. And it's still silent on Sakazuki's end, because he's just okay, maybe I hit a nerve. I struck a nerve here. And then we get Kizaru, and he's just if you've got time to doubt, then come see it with your own eyes, you little shit. And he's just swearing at Sakazuki. Fair enough. Most of us want to. And, and it's, it's Kizaru, he's crying. It's that typical face that Oda does with the tears streaming down and the snot coming out of the nose and the wobbly lips and everything like that. And this is pretty much the most emotional we've ever seen Kizaru. I mean, like, earlier in the arc when everything was going on with that, we saw a little bit more of emotion from him. But, like, this is the most emotional we've seen Kizaru. Beyond, getting his face punched through by Luffy, which was just hilarious, and I still love that panel. So Sakazuki's just kind of silent for a moment longer as he's, like, processing what's going on. And, of course, because of how the snails work, we know that, like, the snail in Sakazuki's office, the Dendenmushi that he's talking to at the moment, is currently making Kizaru's face and crying at the same time. The same way that Kizaru is, because that's how the snails work. So we know that that's going on. And, so that's what's going on there. And he's just like, sorry about that, brother. And Kizaru is just like, yeah, too late for that now. Just yelling at him more. We'll see how the emotional, how it's, handed tonally. I mean, like, he's still going to be, like, freaking pissed in it, of course, in the anime when we get to this in the Japanese and in the English dub. But, still. Now we cut to the Giant's ship with the Straw Hat ship with the Thousand Sunny sailing next to it. Again, has not been confirmed whether or not this is supposed to be the Great Eric or not. It might be the Great Eric, but we're not sure yet. It hasn't been confirmed one way or the other. And, like, on the ship, they've kind of the Straw Hats have kind of, like, redistributed them cells between the Giant's ship and the Thousand Sunny. We don't see Kuma or Bonnie in present timeline in this chapter. We just saw them in Kizaru's flashback, but we don't see them in present time in the chapter. Supposedly, they've taken Kuma's body and, like, set it aside in a certain area, and Bonnie's probably just, like, curled up, on top of or next to or whatever her dad, and maybe she, just from, like, everything she's gone through, they're just, like, here and, like, gave her, well, I was gonna say, like, a blanket, but I'm like, a blanket from a giant is way too big, so maybe they gave her a napkin to, like, snuggle up in or something, like a nice cloth napkin to snuggle up in or something, and calm down, but, or maybe they moved her and Kuma to the Sunny. I'm not sure. We don't see them in this chapter, but they're, somewhere in here. They're here. We know they left on the ship along with Lilith and the Straw Hats. So we didn't see Stussy, and we haven't seen Kaku and Lucci for who's left on the island. Kaku and Lucci may have, Lucci was probably already passed out, so he might just be doubly passed out now by the hockey. And then Kaku is a little bit left up for debate, and then, like, we don't know about Stussy. But to the Straw Hats and the Giants. So we have, looks like Frankie, Jinbei, and Zoro are currently on the Sunny. And they're like, it's too quiet. Is the party over? And Frankie's like, apparently everyone only had one drink. And Jinbei's like, I've never seen Luffy depressed like this before. We couldn't fulfill our objective, so... And we get the little flashback of, like, Vegapunk, was like, please help me escape Egghead Island, Quasar. When he was, talking with Luffy and Jinbei and Chopper and... Bonnie, when that was all happening. And then we basically get to have Frankie's version of, like, his sum-up point of view of the arc. He's like, the 5 elders, a Navy Admiral, CP0, and to top it all off, we were surrounded by a fleet of warships. I still can't wrap my head around it. The fact we got out of that hell is a miracle in itself. And Jinbei's like, I agree. I totally agree. He's like, I agree completely with that. And it's just like, yeah, there was a lot that you had to deal with there. And it is a complete and utter miracle that you made it out with only the Vegapunks dying and none of you dying along with Bonnie. And with Lilith surviving. You are exceedingly lucky. And you owe that to Emmett. And they probably are very well aware of the fact that they owe it to Emmett. That Emmett showing up is what helped with that. Helped with them being able to escape. And such. So it's like they hint at Luffy being depressed. We'll get to depressed Luffy in a moment. But I like the fact that it's like they're able to figure out that those were the elders. Because, like, Frankie's like, yeah, the 5 elders. I'm like, I guess maybe they've seen a picture of them somewhere or something was stated and they figured it out or something. I don't know, but they figured it out that those were the 5 elders. So, something they know that. And then we have Zoro, who's, sitting there drinking. And he's like, how disgraceful. That guy's an emperor now and yet can't even deal with the loss of one old man. And they're like, hey now there, Zoro, calm down. It's like Vegapunk asked them to asked you guys to take him off the island, and in Luffy's mind, like, they don't 100% know if Lilith 100% is, survived and is going to be okay. Atlas blew herself up. Luffy watched Vegapunk, get stabbed by the lightning and by Saturn, or by the light fruit and by Saturn, and all of that. Shaka got shot. Pythagoras blew up. There's still the off chance Edison might be okay, but we don't know yet. That's still left up for debate. York survived, but she's, probably just going to be captured by the world's government and forced into whatever the heck they decide to do with her. Also, the fact that earlier Sakazuki mentions the power plant, which is, of course, referencing the Mother Flame. And then, of course, representing the escapees is, that's like the Straw Hats themselves and Bonnie and Kuma and the, Vegapunk and whatnot, and Lilith managing to escape. And he knew that Saturn was there, so I'm assuming he was informed later that Saturn was there in the first place, and all of that. So then we cut into the giant ship, and we cut to Lilith, who just woke up. And they're like, oh, she's awake, good. And we see Usopp and Chopper and Nami and Sanji are all around Lilith. And Usopp seems to be working on something. I don't know what. Maybe he's trying to fix one of the comm devices that they got a hold of. But it looks like he's trying to fix something, but I can't tell. I like that we see like a set of the Dom shoes off to the side. And like they all seem to have changed out of a bunch of their Egghead Island outfits. Because, like, even, like, even Frankie, Zoro, and Jinbei have, like, changed out of their Egghead outfits. So they're not in, like, their futuristic type clothing anymore. And, like, the others seem to be back into, like, just some of their other regular clothing. And they're like, yay, Lilith's awake, thank goodness. And, are you okay, Lilith? And Sanji's like, Lilith, and all of that. And she's like, huh? And she, like, touches her earpiece. Because, like, she's kind of, like, putting things together, and we see that this group are currently sitting on just like one of the giant sofas that the giants have on their giant ship, which is just like this huge sofa sectional bit that they are on. It's like big enough for all of them to sit on comfortably. Also, when we zoom out, we see just like how big the table and everything else is like compared to them, and they just look like little bugs on the sofa, which is adorable compared to like the size of these things. And also there's like a little ladder that the giants have for them that they have sitting next to the leaning on the sofa for like them to go up and down on, which is adorable. I love that. So there's that. So, it might be Nami that's doing the explanation here. She's like, oh yeah, we're in a room on the giant ship, so everything here is huge. I don't know how to tell you this, but you're the only Vegapunk we could save. We failed to get everyone else with us. I'm so sorry to get anyone else with us. I'm so sorry. And Lilith is just kind of silent for a moment. Or maybe it was Usopp that was telling her this. Something like that. One of them was explaining this to Lilith. It's either Nami, Usopp, Chopper, or Sanji. Whichever one was there. Whichever one is doing the explanation, I'm not sure of. And then Nami's like, Atlas knocked you out, so that might be why. And like Lilith is still like kind of, holding onto her earpiece. So it's like supposedly she's communicating with something. We don't get a full explanation of that in this chapter, but Punk Records is still available, but it's still debatable how this communication works between the Vegapunks. And Lilith is like, I understand. I just heard everything, like, because of the, because of her earpiece. And Sanji's like, you heard it from who? And then Lilith is just like, just let me cry for a bit. Like, she's just crying. And I like Usopp off to the side. What part of you is supposed to be evil again? It's like, you were supposed to be the evil one, and yeah, you tried to attack us with Shark. But what part of you is evil? It's like, so there's that. And then Lilith is just like, no, I'm hungry. It's just like, well, you got over that fast. It's just like, someone is thinking, it might be Sanji, perhaps it's due to you detaching York from your brain? Because, like, York's not connected to her anymore, so Lilith would have, like, hunger. She would want food, so she has to now take care of that herself. And it's just like, oh, yeah, if you're hungry, the giant set up, and Brook is here, too. Because, like, Luffy's sitting up on the table, and he's, like, depressed eating. Which is a different kind of eating for Luffy than he normally does, where it's happy or joyous or just freaking hungry. But he's depressed eating right now, which we'll find out what that means for Luffy in a moment. But Brook is like, yeah, if you're hungry, the giant set up a table with some fruits over there you can eat. The atmosphere around the table is a little gloomy, don't you think? And we hear Luffy, and he's just like, man, even though we made a promise, I told the old man Apple we could help him. And Luffy's just sad, which is funny. And he's clearly gone out of, like, the Gear 5th when he's, all depressed and shriveled and weak. He's, like, at least come out of that. And he's at least semi back to normal. And Chopper's like, yeah, Luffy's got it bad, too. He's only been able to put down 5 bushels of grapes. Now, bear in mind, these are not human-sized grapes. These are, like, the size of the grapes we saw when Shanks and his crew were at Elbath just before they left, when they were at that bar. These are huge frickin' grapes. And Luffy's just sitting there just, like, shoving them in his mouth. And, like, has one of them under his arm and one of them in his mouth. And it's just like, 5 bushels of a regular set of grapes is a lot. This is so much more than that. Plus, Luffy's not eating meat. He's eating fruit. We know that Luffy will eat fruit and vegetables and stuff like that as well, and grains and sugar and, desserts and everything like that. Meat is not the only thing that Luffy eats. He eats other things as well, but, like, meat is his favorite food. But it's like, there's something telling about the fact of, like, also, it's like they set out fruit for them, so it's like he's eating the fruit anyway, but still, Luffy will eat food when offered. And Lilith is just like, well, that's plenty. Is it like, well, that's plenty of grapes, isn't it? And she's like, so that's what got you down in the dumps. It's okay, man. I heard everything too. And Sanji is just like, what's she going on about? She kept, you keep saying, I heard everything. And Lilith is explaining, you saw me weeping before because everyone's death seems so brutal, but that was all in your thoughts. To tell you the truth, to put it simply, everyone's alive. And we just see, like, these shocked looks on all of their faces, like, what? What do you mean they're all alive? What do you mean everyone's alive? And they're just like, and she's like, but to you, they're dead. And they're like, wait, hold on, I don't get it. Back up here. And Chopper, and probably Chopper, so you're like a ghost or something? And it's just like, huge shout out of, what? Over both ships, and, like, they both jump. I love that. The ship just jumps, and, like, the Thousand Sunny kind of jumps next to it, which is adorable. And so there's that. And she's like, what I'm trying to say is, you all kept your promise, so don't be sad, Luffy. Because it's like, from our understanding, the Vegapunks, they are all connected to each other because of Punk Records, and because they are all the satellites of the Stella. Now that Stella is dead, Shaka is dead, Pythagoras is dead, Edison is dead, and Atlas is dead. Edison is possibly, most likely dead, but Edison. And the others, 5 of them are all dead. York is with the world government and technically has Punk Records for them. And then Lilith was at least disconnected from being able to communicate with all of them at the same time. But she could still possibly find a way to access Punk Records. But, like, now all of those types of, like, personality issues or so are now with her. in regards to her being able to like say, no, they're not all dead, they're all still here, or in some shape or form, because like I am Vegapunk, so I'm still a part of Vegapunk. So it's like you still succeeded in at least getting one of us off the island, and that means that that ideal still lives on, that Vegapunk's ideas still live on, his desires and hopes for the future still live on in me. So that's great. Then we're going to have one more page, and there's a big double page spread, which I really like. So for this, what we have is Luffy does his 180, flip from being sad to being happy. And to be fair, like, yeah, we've seen Luffy sad several times throughout the story. Sad when he had to fight Usopp, sad when they had to say goodbye to the Mary, sad when they all got separated, sad when Ace died, sad when, going through all of that stuff. Sad when, a few other things happened here and there throughout, like, some of the other arcs where he's, like, learning about other things. Like, Luffy is sad at various points in time, but this was, like, Luffy sad because he tried to keep a promise and he couldn't keep said promise. Like, if Luffy would have been, like, probably a lot more sad about this, but, like, sad that he wasn't, like, if he hadn't been able to get Tama, like, free Wano and free Tama and everything like that and get it so she could have as much food as she wanted. But in this case, it was like, I promised Vegapunk that I'd get him off the island, and I didn't. And now it's just like, all he needs is Lilith going, no, it's fine. I've got, Vegapunks inside of me because I'm a Vegapunk, so it's fine. And so they're like, okay, party time. It's basically what ends up happening. And Luffy's like, okay, fine, yay. And he's like jumping up onto one of the other tables, and we see like the giant chef, and we see Oimo. And they're like, okay, time to party, time to feast, let's get going. And, it's like, okay, giants, thanks for coming to save us. And it's just like, your energy's back, that's good. And it's just like, yeah, let's start the party now. Because, like, at the end of the last chapter, it was like, they were just getting ready to party, and then it's just like, they all kind of just drank, like, one drink, and it's just like, okay, I don't feel like partying right now, because, like, I need to process what just happened. And Luffy is sad. So that's not good for a party. Sad Luffy does not make for a good party. That does not work. And so they're all just like, okay, yeah, time to celebrate. And then, like, they yell down at the Thousand Sunny. It's just like, hey, Zoro, come on, you guys get up here, and it's time to celebrate. We're all going to party. So, then they all jump up onto the ship, and that includes Robin. I don't know if she was on the giant ship already or if she was still on the Thousand Sunny, but Robin seems to have recovered a bit more, so that's good. And they're just happy, we were waiting for you, come and eat to your heart's content and everything like that. So it's just like Luffy's going to enjoy that, having all that food, and Zoro and the others are going to enjoy the food and the booze and everything like that. So that's going to be great. And we see Robin is like holding Chopper like a teddy bear, which I love the bond that Chopper and Robin have. I love that bond because she adores Chopper and thinks he's so cute. And it popped up in my feed the other day, but it was like the scene in Punk Hazard where Frankie is in Chopper's body. And he's like being Frankie in Chopper's body. And Robin is like glaring at him like, do not ever speak with Chopper's body again, Frankie. Do not ever make that noise. Do not ever make that face with Chopper's body again, or I will have to hurt you. Type of a thing for like that setup there. So that's just hilarious. That like popped into my head because like I just love the little, like kind of big sister, little brother vibes that like Robin kind of has with Chopper, where she just loves to dote on him. But like Robin is also extra happy because she's like, when we get to Elbaf, I'll meet Saul there. And Chopper is just like, I'm so happy for you, Robin. He's like being squished in a hug. To be fair, Sanji probably wishes he was in Chopper's place right now getting hugged by Robin. But yeah, it's like Robin's gonna go get to see Saul again, so that's gonna be great. And then we have, I think it's Kashi that's just like, Straw Hat, we did a toast earlier. And then it's just like, yeah, Vegapunk, and then like someone's telling him, Vegapunk claims the one who uncovers the One Piece will steer the world. Who do you think is going to become the Pirate King? And Luffy is like, hey, that's the whole reason I went out to sea, which is just like call back to, just like everything that he's like, whenever he says, I'm going to be king of the pirates, Kaizuko Oni Oru Onar, I'm going to be king of the pirates and everything. And in this case, it's just like Luffy's kind of like, well, yeah, that's the being king of the pirates is kind of the whole reason I left my village. It's kind of the whole, it's why I have this hat from Shanks. He gave it to me because of that. And he's got his hat on? Yeah, okay, good. I was like, make sure Luffy has a straw hat. Okay, we're good. But it's just like all of that, and it's just like this is why he set out in the first place, is to become king of the pirates, because that was what he wanted to become. He wanted to fulfill that dream. So it's just like, why do you think I left? It's like, oh, you're gonna become an amazing, I was trying to think of like something that would be like an amazing thing that you could do, but you have to leave your home to do it. I'm like, politician? No. Sports person, athlete? No, not necessarily. Musician? Not with YouTube anymore. It's like, I don't know, but it's like something where you have to like travel the world to see all of this stuff, do blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, why do you think I left home? I wanted to achieve this dream. Why do you think I left? Why do you think I started this journey? Why do you think I came to this ocean? Type of thing. What do you think I've done? Every choice I've made over the last, 13 years since I was a child. And I ate a bad tasting fruit. And tried to stab my own eye. It's like, what do you think? Every single one of those decisions has led to now. To me wanting to become king of the pirates is like what Luffy is saying. But they're like, okay, well, and he's like, even if I have to go up against you guys, isn't like go up against the giants, I'll be none other. It'll be none other than me. You'll see. And they're like, yeah, cheers. And we see Oimo and Kashi and Dory and Broggy and, all of them are just like so happy and like now we're getting into the party, which is just great. We're getting into this party here. So that's great. I don't know. Is there something else I wanted to point out about that? I mean, we have the little bit here where it's just like where it's, the narrator coming on and it's just like, northeast, full speed ahead. The long-awaited country of the giants. The ship's wake stretched all the way to Elbath. So it's just like, I'm assuming the party is going to last until they get to Elbath, and we see that, because they're all on the ship, so they have, a tether tethering the Sunny to the giant's ship, and we see the ship jumping out of the water again from all the happiness and music and everything like that that's happening. And then we cut to Warland, New World, Elbath, where we cut to the coast, and we see a shadowy figure sitting on the coast, drinking something, and it's like, come. We have a break next week. I think, maybe. And it's like, who awaits on the island of giants? And it's just like, I don't know. I know a lot of people are making the comparison here for, whoever the silhouette is might be the same person that we saw way back just after the time skip, who was the, the visitor that Crocus had at the Twin Capes. So there's a possibility there that this might be the same person, and there's the theories that, oh, it's Shaki, oh, it's Scopper Gabon, oh, it's someone else from the Roger crew, it's Rocks, or it's someone else entirely that has made their way to this island. Oh, it's the man with a burn scar. It's the, he's gonna give them the last road poneglyph, or let them have the chance to try to earn the ability to read it or something. I don't know. It's not Saul, because all the other 2-3 times that we've seen Oda draw Saul, in this arc where we get the flashbacks of him, or where he's waiting on, sitting on Elbath listening to the Vegapunk message, it's clearly Saul, so it's not Saul. And Robin just mentioned Saul, so it's not Saul. But it's like, it wouldn't be, they wouldn't silhouette Shanks, because, well, if they're silhouetting Shanks, it's like, okay, well, why? That's kind of stupid. It's like, we know that he's associated with Elbath, so it's like, it's not Shanks, but it's just like, who are they going to have, who's Oda going to have it be? And even in that regard, it's like, okay, are we going to find out in the next couple of chapters? Is it like who's going to be the villain the villain for this arc, the antagonist that they have to deal with in the Elbath arc? You know, we don't know. We don't know yet. That's left up for debate in this regard. We'll find out, supposedly, when, you know, down the line, once the Straw Hats get to Elbath, we'll probably get that information. But until then, we don't know. And even then, it may be a little while by the time they get to Elbath and everything like that. And yeah, as a lot of people are pointing out, I really freaking hope that... I really freaking hope that they get a lot of character development on Usopp, when like him leveling up and stuff like that during this arc, getting some better weapons and having like him getting to become like what he feels is, you know, his dream of becoming, becoming a great warrior of the sea and everything like that for Usopp. So I really want that to be also just, maybe them finding out some more about Nika, because the Giants would know a lot more about Nika. How much of the Void Century isn't necessarily a Void Century for the Giants, just because for them that would have been maybe like 3-4 generations ago, as opposed to, several dozen generations ago when it comes to like humans. So we'll see there. So that's what I have for this. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye!